Holiday is over. Back to the Sigma grind. A fresh start. So for those of you who don't know or don't care, I just came back from a holiday with my family and we were in Ireland for about 2 weeks and the UK for about 4 or 5 days. And then the other 2 days were basically just flying all the way back to Australia. It's a pretty long flight. So that holiday was nice and all. I'll overlay clips and whatnot as I'm talking, but basically it's given me a sort of fresh start to work back of. I'm glad to be back here in Australia and I'm eager to get back into the routine, especially gym. I'm just going to go over a recap of the holiday and then I'm going to talk about passive income. So basically I got paid the whole time I was on holiday from both of my jobs. So I mentioned how getting a full-time job and a part-time job is more beneficial than casual employment. And this is an example of why. And then I'm going to talk about just some career updates. So I've been recruited by a few, haven't been recruited. A few recruiters have reached out to me while I was on holiday just because I had a LinkedIn presence that was pretty strong and I had a pretty good resume floating around Seek, even though that resume is really outdated. So I'd probably have even more recruiters reaching out to me if I have an updated resume on Seek. But I'm going to go over that just because it was technically a part of the holiday. It'll re-emphasize some points I've made in the past on having a strong resume and a strong LinkedIn profile and just doing a lot of experience to beef up your professional career. And then I'm going to go over the dilemma of potentially accepting a new job if I am offered one. As you'll see, there's a few floating around. So I'll go over the pros and cons of, leaving your current job for a new one. And then I've also got a new training routine and a new diet. This usually happens towards the end of the year anyway. So this will be the summer shred. And when I was on holiday, I've really been thinking about where I want to take my training. So I've decided that I'm definitely going to do a pretty severe cut. I was contemplating doing a more mild cut throughout most of this year, just for the end of this year, but I've decided I'm going to go pretty severe like I did back in 2017 and 2018. And then I'm going to go over this potential new plan. So again, while I was on holiday, I had a potential new avenue to go down, sort of spring up. So I'll go over my current plan for up until 2025 because, you got to think long term. You can get stuff done in short term, but there's nothing major you can get done in the short term. It's more about long-term moves. So I'm going to go over that. I've got the current plan and then I've got a potential new plan that could come up and I'll go over that. And this ties into gamification of life because I've mentioned before about the diversified grind. So if you are pretty good at a few aspects and you're leveling up stats in each category, you can get pretty far rather than just being tunnel visioned and focusing on one thing. Now, of course, there's a time and place for that, but you can't focus on something 100% because it'll just burn you out. There's only so much gym and nutrition stuff you can do in one day. There's only so many hours you can work at your job. There's only so many qualifications you can get for your career in terms of educational qualifications. You can't get 100 degrees related to your career. So there's eventually a cap on everything. If you slowly work on many avenues at the same time, you'll slowly become very good at a lot of things and you become a well-rounded person. All right, so here's just a little calendar of July and August. So basically every day on this calendar is a day that I didn't work. I'm recording this at 2:59 a.m. on Saturday the 13th. I was meant to return to my supermarket job today at 8 o'clock, but I sent him an email while I was on holiday and said, hey, my flight is delayed, quotation marks, and I won't be back in time for the shift Saturday because I just knew I wouldn't be in any condition to work. The flight back was so bad. I got airsick, which I never really get airsick. I was so exhausted. I got home, slept from 11 till 4 in the day, 11 a.m. to 4 p.m. So now my sleep pattern is wrecked. I took a CBD gummy about an hour and a half ago. It was the first one I've taken in weeks because I didn't bring them overseas with me because I wasn't exactly sure of the border rules. And I was like, well, it's a holiday, so I'm not going to be under too much stress. So I don't need to urgently sleep, although it would be nice. So surprisingly, it hasn't really impacted me. I still feel fine in terms of like energy, which is why I'm recording this now instead of recording it after I wake up again. But yeah, the point of me bringing that up is my sleep pattern is wrecked, so I'm lucky I didn't choose to return back to work today, or I'd probably end up just staying up until 8 and then doing a full 9-hour shift. So yeah, not a very welcome return to Australia and the routine, but that's fine. I've got the day off. I've got enough personal and annual leave to cover for me. So again, a benefit of working full-time and part-time, you get paid days off like this. So as you can already see, I've had 21 days off the office and 6 days off the supermarket, which includes a day off tomorrow, because I worked Saturday the 24th of July and we basically flew out very early on the 25th. Now, the total pay I received was, this is gross by the way, this is a net, so this doesn't include taxes, but you know, when someone makes 100,000 a year, they don't actually take home that amount because there's always tax involved. So for simplicity's sake, I earned $5,437.02, which comprises of $3,987.69, nice, from the office, and $1,449.33 from the supermarket. Now, I haven't actually seen the pay slips for these two as of yet, because I just got back and we get our pay slips every Tuesday from the supermarket and every second Tuesday from the office. So the office job assumes I have enough annual leave to cover for that last week I was away, which I believe I do. And the supermarket assumes that the last Saturday, which is today, which is the day that I'm recording this, that I was supposed to be back at work, is covered under personal leave, not annual leave. So personal leave is basically paid at your flat base rate, whereas annual leave is paid out, including any benefits you would have received otherwise if you worked. Because all of the supermarket hours I work have a penalty rate attached to them, because they're either after a certain time, 6 p.m. on a weeknight, or if they're on weekends, which they are, then I get paid a little extra. But if you're away on sick leave or personal leave, you don't get paid that extra benefit. So if I had plugged in this day as annual leave, I'd get a bit more, but that's fine because I need to save annual leave for my exam in October anyway. So yeah, how's that? Earning a bit over $5,000 and not a single second worked. The only time I did anything related to work on this holiday was when I tried to check my pay slips for the supermarket, but because I was outside of Australia, the app wouldn't let me. And then yeah, obviously checking my pay slip email from my office job. And then I sent both jobs an email on like the Tuesday or Wednesday saying I won't be back in time, because I was supposed to be back for Friday as well at my office job. But if that was the case, I would have gotten off the plane, taken home, and drove straight back into work off like 1 hour sleep in the last 2 days. So yeah, I'm lucky I took that off. Otherwise that would have been really rough. So now here's just an example of a pay slip, or an example. Here is the pay slip I received whilst I was on holiday. So as you can see, ordinary time, 0 hours, not a single second worked, but I got paid that holiday leave. So yeah, that's not bad. I just figured I'd show you just to, I guess, show I'm not lying. And also, I find that seeing this stuff puts it into context as well. Like, I know when I was growing up, I liked seeing people's pay slips and seeing what they look like and the money they earned and whatnot. So either way, here's that. And then here's a pay slip from the supermarket. So that was one of the pay slips I received. I think I got 2 while I was on holiday, maybe 3. But regardless, that's a decent amount of money considering I served 0 customers and stacked 0 shelves and moved 0 items out of the call room. So yeah, not bad. Okay, so now here's a message I received on LinkedIn from a recruiter, and they were basically poaching me for a job that pays pretty well, although the figure they gave was super inclusive. So I think it worked out to be about $66,000 per annum, roughly that amount, which is a bit more than what I'm getting paid now. But the location of this place is another half hour, like it's another half hour more of a commute than my current job, and my current job's already an hour, so that's a bit rough. Like the pay increase is pretty good, and it's sort of similar to what I'm doing at the moment. But yeah, it's interesting, and there's a lot of room for like career growth in this job. Like they expect you to be like a business finance partner or something within 2 years at a pretty big Australian food manufacturer. And in fact, we sell their products at Woolies. So that was a pretty interesting role, I'll admit. I was entertaining the idea while I was on holiday because I was just very open to, I guess, doing new things. Now I'm back in Australia, I think I'm going to stick with my current job, but we'll see how that updates. I haven't heard anything more from this recruiter, but we'll see how this progresses. Now here's another, well, not another email, here's another message I received, this one via email from someone who found my resume on Seek, and they were just trying to test out what exactly I'm looking for. I don't think they were aware that I'm currently working in a role because, as I mentioned before, that resume on Seek that I've got floating around on Seek is outdated. So it doesn't actually show my current role. In fact, I think it shows I'm still studying something I've already finished and still working at Woolies, which like I am, but they don't know I'm in a professional role. You could obviously, this recruiter obviously could have just typed in my name on LinkedIn and found that out, but no harm in asking. So that was an interesting firm because I've had a few friends work there, and it's a lot closer to home than my current job. So I believe I actually said I can talk when I'm back from holiday, but I don't think I will. I may give a courtesy call, but I'm sure she's asked plenty of others, so I might just send her an email. That should suffice, just saying, hey, if you want to chat, I can, but chances are I won't be interested. So now what you're seeing here is a bunch of other jobs that got basically promoted to me from LinkedIn. Now I blurred out all of them except the university just because confidential reasons, I guess, but a university isn't super confidential, so that's fine. And the reason I wanted to leave that unblurred is, if you can see the circled part, it's paying $82,000 per annum plus pretty high superannuation amounts. So that's a pretty beneficial role, and it's the exact same title as my current title. So if I just had a few more years experience and my CPA, I'd be a pretty good candidate for this role. So it just goes to show you, if you just keep beefing up your career stat, a good opportunity will arise and your life will just be a lot easier. Luck is when preparation meets opportunity. The opportunity would be a job like this. The preparation would be you study hard, you get your degree, you get your other qualification on top of the degree, you get experience. So just remember that although the work you're putting in your career may not have paid off yet, eventually it will. You just got to keep making yourself a viable player in the market, and then eventually the game will come to you. And now here are just more assistant accountant jobs that have just been sort of thrown my way. Some of them are paying pretty well too, but you know, I'd be a pretty good candidate if I had another 5 years experience and my CPA. Not that I'd leave my current job right now, but down the track, if there was pretty good pay on offer again, like what I see here, I'd be interested. So here are just some pros and cons of me staying at my current job. So pros, chilled work environment. You can see I've highlighted that in green because that's extremely important to me. I don't want to go to work being all stressed and whatnot. So although my job pays a little bit under, which is a con we'll go into, the work environment is just so good. Like, I do not stress going into work at all. And like, in the off chance that I make a mistake or something, it's not the end of the world. So that's extremely important. Familiar with workload. So yeah, obviously you don't want to be too comfortable in your life, otherwise you'll never progress. But at the moment, with, you know, increasing the aesthetic stat, increasing the money stat, increasing the investor stat, increasing the online brand stat, it's nice to sort of, and then obviously increasing the career stat via study as well. It's nice to have something just sort of on the back burner. Not like I'm not progressing at this job or anything, but it's not like I'm working for a massive major corporation learning something extremely new every day, which would add to overall stress, which means I wouldn't have the mental fortitude to do study when I get home or work on online branding or anything like that. So for now, being familiar with the workload is a pro. And I can listen to music /investments /podcasts, although I don't really do podcasts. If anything, it's like longer YouTube videos. But you'd be surprised that some places don't actually let you listen to this stuff. Now, obviously you can if you can work from home, but in the off chance you get a job where you have to be in the office all the time and they don't let you listen to music, this will really stifle my growth. It's primarily the investor stat that would be stifled, but I do listen to some aesthetic stuff like a little bit more nutrition and hormone, especially hormone optimization lately. So those stats would be hindered. And then even online brand growth as well. So I'll listen to that from time to time. It's primarily investing too, but regardless, this job lets me progress at those other areas at a much faster rate than I would be allowed at other places. So my current job is also industry accounting experience, and I found that those can transfer more beneficially to government jobs as opposed to public accounting. So for those of you who don't know, public accounting is where you work at an accounting firm and anyone can walk in and say, hey, can you manage my business? Hey, can you do my taxes? Hey, can you be a bookkeeper? But for industry, you're doing the accounting just for that business. So no one can walk into my office and say, hey, can you do my taxes? Or, hey, can you help me run my business? Like, no, I only do that stuff for this particular organization that I'm working for. And I found a lot of jobs in the government sort of sectors. The job descriptions have fit more in line with those working in industry. Although I'm sure if you worked in public, you'd still be a good candidate, but I think that industry experience is a little bit better in terms of transferring to that. And government roles are better overall. They tend to pay a bit more, at least in some sectors at least, but from what I've heard, they're a lot more chilled. And I think their jobs are a little bit more secure than the private sector, but that's another rabbit hole I could spend a whole video on, but we'll move on now. And I can continue my current routine, the grind set, without any major unforeseeable disruptions. So far the last 12 months with the whole progressing in each of these stats, it's gone pretty smoothly, all things considered. It's not like I've had any major disruptions. Like the most major disruption was probably the holiday. But if I was to switch to another job and it required you to do a lot of overtime, for example, imagine your job forces you to do overtime while you're trying to study for your exam that's only a couple of days away, and then you fail the exam because of that. Like, that puts you way back. You know, you're supposed to go to the gym tonight. No, work needs you to stay back or go fly off to the client's site or whatever if you work for a bigger place. You know, there's just so many unforeseen events. Whereas with my job, I may do 10-15 minutes extra here and there. And by here and there, I mean every few months. It's extremely rare that I'd stay back any later than 4:30. So it helps me continue my current path, and my current path is going to pay off. I know it. So it would be nice to not have this disrupted. So that would be a pro of staying in my current job. Now, as for the cons, you can see the first one highlighted in red because it's the most important to me. The pay is below skill level and market level, as you saw in the previous slides. A lot of them were paying a bit more than what my current role is offering. So that's a pretty big con because obviously money is important. It's not everything, but it's pretty important. No work from home. Yeah, I know a lot of other office jobs do. I know some don't, including mine. I get it based on my current job. If you knew what it was like, it makes sense, but it kind of is a little bit painful knowing you've got a degree in a white collar job and you've got other educational qualifications, and after all that, you're still not allowed to work from home. But it's fine, I get it, but I'd be lying if I said it wasn't a con. Now, a 1 hour commute. Now, others are potentially worse. However, yeah, I mentioned that before, especially if I worked in Melbourne. By the time you take public transport, take a tram to the office, wait for public transport on the way back, the commute would be even longer. but more often than not, jobs like that would let you work from home some days of the week, so I guess that would offset it. But regardless, a 1 hour commute, it's not terrible, but I'd prefer it to be shorter because that gives you more time to sleep. Like, I still increase the investor stat usually, or as I mentioned before, aesthetics or online brand, by listening to some information while I'm driving, but if I'm honest, that time is better spent sleeping, or even being at home, or spending a bit more time at the gym as opposed to just learning a bit more. Obviously, learning is important, but sometimes practical action is better. And the last con, many higher-paying tax-related private sector jobs prefer public accounting. Now, I've always liked tax, which is I'm probably the only person in the world who likes tax. But yeah, I've always liked tax, just not the tax work in public accounting. So when you're at the sort of career level I'm at, if you want to work in tax, you have to work for a public accounting firm, and that's when you deal with all the grumpy old clients, and there's a lot of complex stuff, and then the partner gets pretty shitty if you screw it up because you can get taken to court and all that. So it's pretty rough work at this skill level, but later down the track you can do like tax work for I saw an ASX 200 listed company advertised for a tax accountant on LinkedIn, which would be a pretty sick role, to be honest. But obviously I wouldn't actually be able to qualify for that job unless I had a lot more experience in the public sector as opposed to the private sector, like what I currently am working in. But that's just a con to list. In my current role, it kind of blocks me off from those sort of jobs. But with that said, the skills I am learning from my current job transfer to other jobs as opposed to these high-end tax jobs. But that's just a con. Obviously, if I worked in public accounting doing tax, a con of that would be I'd have less transferable skills to, let's say, government jobs, like I mentioned before. But that's enough with career. We'll move on to the gym and training stuff. So here's a diet I've whipped up for the next 3 months, and I'll reassess in November, just checking how much weight I have lost. I'm just assuming that based on what I've eaten so far and my weight, I'm assuming I will cut with these calories. I could obviously just slash them down to 2,000 and definitely lose weight from there, but you lose weight way too fast, so got to take this slow. So this is my diet for the next 3 months. I've got some spare calories in there. I'm not exactly sure what I'll use those for. Chances are it'll just be some rice, maybe. See if I can find 10 grams of protein somewhere else. I could have a bit more milk, but then that would bump up the fats a little bit more. But either way, I've got some spare calories there if need be. We're starting this cut right now. So this is a new training routine I've whipped up. So my old one was 5 days a week. I mentioned in another video how I never really got to train 5 days a week because my schedule would always get in the way. And then there was this 1 3-week period in particular where I managed to not have any other disruptions, and I managed to work out 5 days for 3 weeks in a row, and I was just so exhausted at the end of it. And I realized that my body just can't handle 5 days a week of training given everything else I do. So I've had to cut that back to 4. The Tuesday and Wednesday sessions are probably non-negotiable since those nights are usually free for me anyway. Thursday could get pushed forward to like Friday, for example, but I'll keep it at Thursday for now. And then Saturday night, always gym on a Saturday night. I used to gym Sunday nights as well, but the routines were just so lackluster because I have to be at work by 7 on that day, which is by far my earliest wake up, and it's a pretty physical day, all things considered, at the supermarket on a Sunday. So not only are you tired because you haven't had enough sleep, but also because you've been pretty active all day. So if I just cut that night out and increase the online brand stat or increase studying on those nights, for example, that will probably be a better trade-off for my time. And then here's a new training routine for week 2. As you can see, the Tuesday and the Thursday, the upper and the arms stay the same because those are pretty important to me. The leg day gets switched around. That leg day on week 2 used to be my old Sunday one, but I'm just going to switch it up now. And then the Saturday, I'm really keen to actually start this workout. I think it'll be fun. There's flat pause bench for 5 sets, chin-ups for 5 sets, barbell hip thrusts for 5 sets, rope upright rows for 5 sets, hanging leg raises for 5 sets, and then bike is just riding on the bike for 10 minutes, because if I try to put cardio at the end of my workout like I used to, if I prescribe cardio at the end of my workout like I did back in the uni days, I know I'll skip it now just because of time constraints and just overall lack of energy in general. So if I have a designated day where I don't do, I guess, as much overall, like I've really only got 5 exercises, although they'll tire me out for sure, it's only really 5 exercises, so it's not super mentally fatiguing or anything like that. Although I've only got 5 exercises and most of them are compound movements, I still feel I'll have the energy for bike riding if I slot it on this particular day, and it'll only be once a fortnight anyway. I'll look at increasing the amount of cardio that I do, because obviously it'll help me burn more calories too. And then another thing I realized on the holiday is I've actually noticed it for a while now, but especially on this holiday, because we did a lot of walking around, I get out of breath pretty quickly because I haven't done much like cardio at all since I played basketball. And the last time I played that was like middle 2019 after I retired from the sport. So probably having a weak heart is really not ideal. So I should probably do some designated cardio. And if I want to look into hormone optimization, I'm going to probably need a better heart as well anyway. So if I have a designated day for that, then hopefully that'll at least get me started. And it says foreseeable future because this will change a lot quicker than the diet, I reckon. Like, for example, probably add more cardio, or I might add another exercise on that Saturday. Now, the reason that that's more of an upper body session as opposed to like just doing another leg day, because then I'm really only training legs once a week. My priorities lie with getting a bigger chest, and I don't want to only bench once a week. So that's why the week 1 routine has like 2 upper workouts, and then the week 2 routine will have at least some benching on the second workout, and then chin-ups as well. I think I'll do a more bicep-focused chin-up as opposed to the more back-focused ones that I'm currently doing, because if you see Olympic gymnasts, a lot of them do chin-ups using their, well, they use their biceps anyway, but they primarily focus on the flexion at the elbow as opposed to the retraction of your back muscles. So basically what that means is they're focusing on pulling with their biceps as opposed to pulling with their back, and that's why you'll find they've got pretty decent sized biceps. So I'll probably try that out. And then barbell hip thrusts, although I do like big quads and hamstrings and whatnot, my priorities lie with bigger glutes, so that's why I'll be doing that as well. Got to show these Instagram girls who's boss. And then rope upright rows, as you can see in my last video, how important they are, so I'm not skipping out on them. I'm gonna keep them in the routine, obviously. And then hanging leg raises. So when I got super diced in 2017, I had 2 or 3 sets of abs at the end of every single workout, and back then I was doing 6 days a week. So for now, I might just try doing a lot for them on one particular day, which will be this Saturday here. Now, I'll probably end up tacking abs at the end of a lot of my other workouts. As you can already see, they're kind of tacked on at the end of some workouts, but I might split it up a bit more. Instead of doing 5 sets on this day, I might just do 3 and add a couple sets on another day and then add another exercise. But again, we'll just trial this out and see how it goes. But yeah, priorities are bigger chest, bigger biceps, bigger glutes, bigger delts, and better abs. Everything's a priority at the moment, but especially those for a cut. So that's why I've got this particular workout set in there now. So as for the new plan for the future, this is plan 1, what you're seeing right now, and it's basically just continuing on the same path that I've gone through. So the rest of this year, just continue on with, everything I'm doing. Hopefully the aesthetics will have the hormone optimization plan all set out towards the end of the year. But investor, online brands, career, just keep doing what I'm doing, hopefully pass the CPA subject, which I did a fair bit of study for that while I was on holiday, so should be right there. 2023, continue with current new job. As I mentioned before in the pros and cons, don't want to disrupt the grind train I've got going, so continue the new job and just be able to finish those CPA units, because once that's done, that's a huge milestone. That is a massive hurdle that I just completed. Money, keep working at both jobs, just keep increasing that money stat. I'm going to need it for my real estate investment. Defense, just adding more years to my resume for retail and accounting. Aesthetics, continue the hormone optimization plan that I've hopefully will have set out by the end of this year, as well as just general training and nutrition in general, but we'll play it by ear. Investor, and there's nothing too special I want to get done. I've been doing more of the short-term trades lately and they've been doing pretty well, but the problem is back in Australia, the stock market is basically open for the whole time that I'm asleep. Whereas when I was in Ireland and the UK, the stock market was basically open during my waking hours there. So it was good to do these like short-term day trades, but don't know how I'm going to do that back in Australia. I could trade based off like the technicals for the closing charts for the next day and just hope the momentum continues, or I could anticipate earnings reports, stuff like that. But there's nothing too major, like no major milestones for the investor stat. Just keep doing what I'm doing. And then same with the online brands, just keep pumping out stuff, growing the brand. And then 2024, just continue the current job. Not sure what I'll do in terms of study, probably take a break, and that way I can increase the investor and online brand stats a bit more. Money, continue saving for a house. You would think I might have enough for a house by then, but in Victoria, in Australia where I live, a lot of the builders are going under because basically they sign contracts to build houses for a predetermined price, but by the time they got around to building it, the price of labor and materials just shot way up, so they were building at a loss, so a lot of them have had to default, and some people are left with half-finished houses, so I don't want that to be me. So I'm just going to let the market just sort of correct itself, and from what I've seen, it's not really going to be fixed anytime soon, probably not even in 2024, so I'll have to just sit on the sidelines for a bit, but I'll still be stacking money. Defense stat, yeah, just, continue stacking years of experience on the resume. Aesthetics, yeah, continue the new plan, potentially amp it up, but we'll see how we go. Investor, continue investing info. And then online brands, yeah, as you can see, continue with online brand development. With CPA done and new gym plan fully underway, this stat should drastically increase, because once I've got CPA done and my whole new sort of gym plan well underway and I've figured out everything I want to get done with it, hopefully I'll be able to focus a bit more on this stuff. Now, plan 2. So, as I mentioned before, on the holiday, a new sort of idea sprung into my head. So, long story short, I know people who can get me a job in the mines. Yeah, mining. So quite a bit of a change, but hear me out. But I will actually start off with 2022's current projection for the career. So I applied for an internship at the Department of Treasury and Finance, which is like a government sort of agency here in Australia. And they, if you couldn't tell, do Treasury and Finance stuff. And it'll be really good to sort of put my economics knowledge into practice, because my current job has nothing really to do with it other than, oh, hey, the price of this went up. Why is that? Well, probably because of some economic factor, but it's not like you're required in your role to know anything about that. All you need to know is the price went up, so budget for it. But yeah, if I get accepted for this internship, it'll only be 3 months, and I am paid for it, but I'm more so after the experience. And I've sort of thought about, a potential job here for quite a while now. So at the very least, if I have an internship, I can decide whether I want to work there or not. Like, for all I know, maybe the work is super boring and I'm overhyping it. But regardless, if I was to have an internship here, that's 3 months of pretty solid resume experience. As for work, my current job, I'm going to have to make up something. I'm going to have to tell them I've got a family thing or something like that. We've got someone going on maternity leave soon, so it might be a bit tricky, but I think my work will be pretty good with, if I just say I'm away for 3 months, I'll be back though.
I think I should be able to hold the job still. Worst case, they're like, all right, bye. I do my 3 months there, and then I do my 3 months internship there, and then I look for a new job. But regardless, the potential for the resume experience is the resume experience I'd receive from working an internship at this place is priceless. So definitely worth it. And money, continue working at the jobs. Worst case scenario is I accept the internship, work isn't happy. They say, hey, all right, thanks for everything you've done. See you later. I have no job to fall back on after the internship's done. I spend maybe 2-3 months looking for a new gig while I just work at the supermarket. I'll have enough money for my main land deposit by then, hopefully. So it's not like I'm in a real urgent rush with money or anything. I can afford to let that stat sort of decrease a little bit just while I focus on increasing the career stat. But regardless, just keep working with money. And defense, continue working both jobs for job security. Work something out with supermarket regarding Saturday shifts if I receive internship. So a potential thing is I can work Saturdays at the office job because they're open Saturdays. I can just do stuff then to help alleviate the workload and obviously keep my foot in the door. But the problem is with a supermarket job, we're changing stores. So we need to basically not renegotiate our jobs. We get a job regardless, but sort of renegotiate the hours. We should get our contracted hours, but if not, that's going to be a problem. So the new store has to give me my 18 hours of work, but they can choose a sort of hours. So they could put me on 1 till 10s on the weekend instead of the 8 to 5 and 7 till 4, which will really disrupt my sleep pattern and sort of my whole groove in general. Like, yeah, I get sleep-ins on the weekends, but that means I'll have to set an alarm just to get gym done in time, for example. And I'm not going to gym after work at 10 p.m. because that'll really disrupt the sleep pattern, but that's something I'll have to figure it out. I haven't given it much thought yet because I obviously don't know if I'll even get the internship. So if I don't get it, then no problems here. But the reason it's a problem is because the new store's hiring 70 to 100 new people. So if I don't do the hours they want, I think they'll get someone else to, and I'll lose a contract, and then I'll have to be put on casual. But I don't think that might be a problem in the short term, but I know for a fact eventually they'll start calling me in for the certain shifts, and they'll just eventually put me back onto the weekends, back onto the weekend day shifts. But that might just be a temporary hiccup. But yeah, that's something that could go wrong with increasing the defense stat in late 2022, early 2023. Aesthetics for 2022, the internship may interfere with gym, but it's a worthy trade-off to make for that massive increase in the career stat. Investor, that'll slip a little bit with the fact that I probably won't be able to listen to like anything at this internship, but I'll have the tram rides at least. And again, if I let that investor stat slip for a massive increase in career stat, that's worth it to me. Online brands is in the same boat as the other two. It'll have to sod off a bit, but hey, that's part of the diversified grind for you. So you can read through 2023 if you want, but it's pretty similar to what I just said. If I just get the internship after a couple of months after it's over, everything should be reset and back on track. Now, 2024, because I'll have my CPA done then, which is the main thing, I could put my career on hold and potentially fabricate experience in the mines. So what that means is I can just say I did some sort of accounting job in the mines and just make it very basic, just so there's not a sort of skills career gap on my resume related to accounting. But that's, again, it's good to have plans, but my plans are kind of really fluid and flexible. I don't like having anything too rigid because every time I've made a rigid plan in the past, it's never come to fruition. I spent a lot of time planning for something that never actually happened. Like, for example, in late 2018, one of my goals was to secure full-time employment at that current job after I got my degree, and then work weekends at the supermarket, and then work nights as a personal trainer at a gym nearby. But then I lost that job. The gym nearby wasn't like hiring for anyone, so that plan just got shot down the drain. I did a whole budget and everything for it, just like anticipating this is what I'll charge for a client, this is how many clients I'll have, these are nights I'll work. So, did a whole plan, never came to fruition. So I'm not going to go into too much detail for any potential mining plans, but it's just something to think about. So yeah, you drastically increase your money stat by working in the mines. I think you can get it's like 45 to 48 an hour, which it's a lot, but it's not as much as you'd think, but it's just the extra hours you do. Like a normal job that pays that you'd work like 8 paid hours in a day. Mining is like 12, although maybe there's like an hour lunch break, but even 11 work hours as opposed to 8. And then they work like 7-day weeks. So that's obviously 2 extra days from like a normal high paying job. I go into the figures later in the slides, but basically there's just a lot more money to be made in mining than my career. Even if I had another 20 years experience, I'd still probably earn more in the mines. Obviously the conditions are a lot worse and I'd prefer the office job life, but if I have to suck it up for a few years just to jack up the money stat by a fair bit, I think that'll be a worthwhile trade-off. So the defense stat will slip drastically because mining will have like the potential shutdowns and all that, so you won't have anything in the meantime. So yeah, I'll lose the stability of both jobs, but again, stacking the years of experience, I'll have more than enough to jump back into retail and accounting if need be. I may have to just do a couple more years accounting first before I potentially go to the mines, but again, we'll see just how it plans out. So if I'm at the mines, gym's going to be a problem. Some mining camps have gyms from what I've seen. One of the people I knew was saying that the person that they knew said they had gym facilities there. So you don't, you work 7 days a week, but you eventually have some breaks. So most people fly out in that time. What I'd probably do, I'd probably just stay there and just work out and just, catch up on some investing and work on online brands and stuff during my week off or the potential days off or whatever. But again, something to think about if that comes to fruition. So yeah, as for investor, just minimal investing stuff when I work in the camp. So yeah, as for the investor stat, just that'll be at a minimum on the days that I do work, because obviously you can't listen to you can't have headphones in or be listening to anything when you're in the mines, because you got to be sharp or people get killed. So I'll just keep that at a minimum. Chances are I'll end up just watching only Maverick of Wall Street, Stocked Up, and Stoic Finance. Those three sort of give me basically the news in terms of the stock market and anything important that I need to know. Stocked Up's videos are usually 10 to 15 minutes. Stoic Finances are usually 9 to 12 minutes. Sometimes they both put out 2 videos, but there's only basically they'll put out a sort of news video most days, and that'll be the one that I watch. I won't worry about the other one if I have a mining job. And then I'll watch all of the Maverick of Wall Street. His videos are like 50 minutes to a bit over an hour. So those 3 will be more than enough. And then online brands just create videos during off weeks. It'll be pretty tricky to post much stuff if I'm doing 12-hour days in the mines. But again, just something to think about as we're going forward. So here's a projected update for the end of 2025 on my current path. So as you can see, all the stats across the board are pretty good. With any luck, the online brand stat will be a lot higher, but I can't really, I know for a fact once I get my CPA and years of experience, I'll be pretty high up in terms of my career. I'll obviously be I'll obviously be pretty high up in terms of the percentage of money. I'll probably be earning a fair bit. I'm already technically on 6 figures right now, and I'll be on 6 figures without super by the end of this 2025, I would assume, given the years of experience and CPA and the way that inflation is going and the job shortage and all that. Education and skills, so the defense stat, that'll be obviously even higher once I get the CPA qualification and more years of experience. Aesthetics, yeah, with the new sort of gym plan, that'll be pretty much perfect. I won't be Ronnie Coleman or anything, but I'll be generally considered very aesthetic if all goes well. Investor stat, with at the rate I'm learning new stuff, I reckon I'll have pretty much a decent chunk of it sorted by the end of 2025. It could obviously even be higher, but there could be other things that I don't know. Like, by then I'll know everything about the bond market and treasury bills and stuff like that. Stuff that I haven't really dabbled in too much at the moment. And then my current stock trading platform doesn't actually allow me options, so I can't really do calls or puts or anything like that. But by then, hopefully, there will be a platform like that in Australia that lets you do that, or there might be one now, but I'm just not willing to put up with their high fees. But again, that'll be something I'll have sorted, and then I figure once I have most of that, I'll have everything under wrap. But 75%, that'll be that's good enough anyway. Might even be more, but again, that's just a current trajectory. It's just a projected forecast. So at the end of 2025, I'll be 29 years old, and you can see that on the left, the little column 2023 to 2025, you can just see some more justifications for the stat increases I've given myself. And then the stat increases from 2023 to 2025 are listed there. So plus 25 career, plus 10 money. So all that is based off where I should be at the end of 2023. Like, for example, 2023, I should be on 50% career and 70% on the money stat. But then at the end of 2025, I should be 75% on the career stat and 80% for the money. So hope you get what that means. Now, here's a new projected update if I go into the mines. So as you can see, the career slips a bit, or everything really slips a bit except for the money. The money is maxed out because, as you can see from the money there, now mining, 45 to 49 an hour. If you work in the really rough conditions, which is where I would probably end up working. Like, I think some mining jobs, I can't remember the exact role. You need like a sort of short course to like get into it, which won't really be the problem. But I know that some of the more lower level mining jobs pay like 34 an hour, and that wouldn't really be worth it because I'm pretty close to that right now. And yeah, I'd end up working more hours, but the slight bump in money for working 12-hour days in the mines for 34 an hour isn't worth the sacrifice I have to make to the career, investor, aesthetics, defense, and online branding stat. But for 45 to 49 an hour for 12-hour days, 7 days a week, now that is a worthwhile trade-off for me. So those are you can see the rough calculations there. $540 a day, likely 7-day work weeks, which is $3,780 a week. Now, even if you only do 40 weeks a year, because obviously you don't work 52 weeks straight, but even if you only do 40, I think you might end up doing more, but even if you only did 40, that's somewhere between that's around $151,000 per annum. And that's a lot higher than the $95,000 per annum projection that I have for that time. So yeah, that's a lot of extra money to be putting into investments and real estate and stuff. So I'd probably just stockpile that for the time that I'm in the mines and then look at dispensing that into investments once I return from the mines. So yeah, I'll be 29 years old at the end of it. So there's plenty of time to get the rest of your life sorted. Just do a couple of hard years in the mines just to jack up the money stat to give you a bit of a boost. I think it might be a worthy trade-off for me. So here are two graphs comparing where I should be at the end of 2025 if nothing else changes, and then the stats for myself if I was to go into the mines. As you can see, mining really only beats out in the money stat. Chances are my happiness might be dipped a little bit just because I'm not really a fan of like labor intensive work, but I guess the baseline level of happiness would probably stay the same anyway, because I know that it would pay off in the future anyway. And then you've got the whole hedonic treadmill thing. So hedonic treadmill, that's when people, like, it's sort of like lifestyle inflation or golden handcuffs. So once you earn more money, you buy more stuff, or like your baseline level of happiness just sort of goes up. Like, for example, if you're homeless, once you get a house, you're going to be pretty happy. But if you have a house, you upgrade to a bigger house, you're pretty happy, but then it just goes back to normal. I think I have something like that, except it's sort of just, as long as I'm progressing, I'm always at this certain baseline level in my mental state. But Anyway, those are just some stats that I've just put up there. Nothing's certain, and for all I know, maybe I don't end up going to the mines after all. Maybe I can't actually get in. But, there's just something to think about. So now, closing thoughts. There's always options if you diversify your grind, but don't spread yourself too thin. So yeah, it goes back to that saying, a mile wide, an inch deep. If I tried to learn an instrument and a new language right now, that'd just be way too much. Like, yeah, it might be sick, but gym would have to slip a little bit. Potentially would fail an exam because I haven't done enough study. Online brands wouldn't really grow, wouldn't really be progressing in my investing knowledge or anything like that. So I think I've spread myself at a pretty good range, if I'm honest. But regardless, I have options. I don't have any deep roots in Victoria to prevent me from moving to WA. Like, I don't have a spouse or a family or anything like a family. Like, I got a family, but if I have to move away, so be it. I just spent a whole holiday with them, so I think they'll be right if I leave for a bit. So I have the land. So I guess that is a potential route in Victoria, but you can always just turn that into an investment property, hey. At the current state, I won't have a house for ages anyway. So I need to live in that house and have it as my primary residence for 12 months to receive a $10,000 grant from the government, which means I can't have a home built halfway through 2024, then move to the mines. I have to stay put in the mines for a bit. But as mentioned before, chances are that house is a long way away yet anyway. So other than this, there'll be plenty of chances to get a new job once I'm done. Like, once I'm done in the mines. So I'll have way more than enough money to just kick back for a few months while I find a new job, and even find a new weekend job, because obviously if I would go to the mines, I'm going to have to resign from the supermarket as well as my office job. So it's not like I can just jump straight back into those jobs, because they'll obviously have hired someone to replace me at the office, and the supermarket doesn't sort of just hire whenever. They hire in batch periods, so you got to wait for that to pop up. And as you also saw in the career section of the video, there always seems to be demand for my profession, and that's likely going to continue given the labour shortages and just the growth of, well, not the growth of the economy's shrinking, but there's people just leaving accounting and not really coming back. So the labour shortage is likely to just continue. But regardless of that, I'll have the experience, I'll have the education, and I'll have the money from the mines to just kick back for a little bit. So again, that's why it's important to increase your resume. Again, that's why it's important to increase your education level, which increases because it blocks other candidates off from stealing your job. If you have the education, they don't. That's why you get experience, because it gives you an edge over the competition, increases the defense stats so no one can take your rightful role. But, again, this is just some plan. Again, this is just a rough plan that I made while I was on holiday. So anyway, those are just basically just some ideas that I had floating around in my head that I got on this holiday while being away from my routine. Potentially move to a new job, probably won't, but the idea is always there. New gym routine, that'll be fun. New potential plan as well. If I don't have to go on my current path, I do have another path available to me, but even then I'm still increasing all my stats. So just as long as you're progressing in generally the right direction and enough of your stats are going up, you'll be right. So the holiday is over. We're back to the Sigma grind. We've got a fresh start. That is all.